Hey everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and you know what time it is. It's my favourite time of the week. It's the penultimate episode of Wrestlers of the Week 2018. And by this point, with the league table all wrapped up, we all know who the winner is. It's now a case, I guess, of wrestlers getting as many points as they can to consolidate their position or improve upon it in the league table. Also, I guess you could say that guys who've never been Wrestler of the Week for any week throughout the whole series are now shooting for the moon. They're trying to get on there, get the full 10 points, and then they can finally be a Wrestler of the Week for the inaugural season of this series. Wonderful stuff. Let's crack on with it, and let's take a look at my Wrestlers of the Week, week 51. Absolutely loads and loads of honorable mentions to talk about, because this was a week where basically, you know how I only take a show into account usually if it's on demand that week? Loads of promotions decided to drop their events this week, so there's quite a few HMs to get through. Not the special Pokemon moves, honorable mentions. First and foremost, I'm so sorry to both members of CCK that wrestled recently. Chris Brooks and Jonathan Gresham was this incarnation of CCK, had a killer match against LAX, but it was one of those weeks where like, it's just hard to squeeze everyone in, and tag matches, obviously the load is shared between who does impressive stuff, and I just couldn't squeeze them in. But check out that match on Progress on Demand, because it was absolutely wonderful, an amazing tag team match. Also another amazing tag team match, again in which the load and the crazy bumps were all shared out, so none of them got on the list, was the main event of Final Battle, which saw the Briscoes win the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships, and the Bucks also impressed, and it was just a great three-way tag team match, and I'm so sorry to all 6 guys involved for not being able to crack the league table again. I feel really bad. The main event of 205 Live was a really fun no DQ brawl between the babyface team of Kendrick and Tozawa and the heel team of Gulak and Gallagher. Again, apologies. So much good sort of tag team action this week, and I just couldn't squeeze everyone on. Some single stars to talk about now as well. Mustafa Ali looks like he's in line for a huge push on SmackDown Live. Again, looked really good on SmackDown. Actually picked up a pinfall over Daniel Bryan, although there was a little bit of controversy because he did accidentally knee him in the face on the way down from the 054, but otherwise, really impressive stuff from Ali. Roderick Strong popped up on Evolve and had a match. That was very exciting indeed, even though he's the sneaky, dirty heel of this list, trying to get a few more points by going down to Evolve. Are you, Roderick? Despicable. Kylie Ray, not Kaylee Ray, Kylie Ray from AAW in Chicago won the Women's Championship in the main event, defeating Kimber Lee. Huge babyface pop for a wrestler that admittedly I'm not too familiar with, but she wears Pikachu, I think, on a lot of her gear, so fair play there. Jay Lethal as well retained the Ring of Honor World Championship at Final Battle, defeating Cody Rhodes in a ruthless display, ensuring that Cody did not leave the promotion with the Ring of Honor World Championship. I think that's all of them, but there's probably like 20 that I've forgotten that deserve a mention as well. Sorry guys. Number 10 this week goes to Cassius Ohno, who, like Roderick Strong, went down to Evolve and wrestled 2 shows there. I think it was Evolve 117 and 118. I believe that's true. He wrestled Darby Allen, my boy, and defeated him, and main evented the second night against Anthony Henry and defeated him too. Cassius Ohno picking up wins left, right and centre. Just on the general topic of Cassius Ohno, I really like his position in NXT at the minute. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, he never wins, he's always losing to the next big thing. That's kind of his role, you know, he's the gatekeeper, and currently I imagine he's going to put Matt Riddle over again, and that's great. You know, someone needs to do that job, and if he keeps himself believable by dominating guys in Evolve, then why not have him in that position on NXT? Fair play, Cassius Ohno. I nearly said, hope you have a good Christmas, mate. I do, yeah. Hope you have a good holiday period, Cassius. You've earned it. Well done. Number 9, I just mentioned him. My boy. My absolute boy. And my favourite discovery this year, I think, in the world of wrestling, out of everyone that I'd never heard of before, Darby Allen is my favourite new discovery. Personally, I know that he was probably familiar to a lot of people watching this, but I only first heard of him this year, and I think he's absolutely class. He lost twice this past week at Evolve, but it's Darby Allen, so does that even matter? If there is any better loser in wrestling than Darby Allen, I'm yet to see them. He loses in fantastic fashion, always comes close, great underdog battling babyface performances, and this week he lost to Cassius Ohno, as I mentioned, on the first night. The second night he lost to the heel of this list, Roderick Strong. But you know what, I'm so pleased to see Darby Allen get a high caliber of opponents. It could indicate that he's on his way to NXT soon, I guess, but I'm not totally certain about that. Maybe, you know what, maybe he is. If he was, I'd suggest that maybe Vince wouldn't like him later on after NXT because of his size. He's quite short and skinny, but I think NXT is the sort of place where he could get over quite a lot. Regardless, he's one of the highlights of Evolve. Has never quite won the Evolve Championship, but maybe in 2019, you know, new year, new beginnings, all that sort of thing. I'd love to see it. I don't know if he will. He's such a good naily man. He's kind of like, you know how Tommy Dreamer would never beat Raven until he did beat Raven. It's kind of one of those situations where you almost don't ever want Darby Allen to get the big victory because he's so good at just coming close. Just before we move on from Evolve as well, I should also shout out an honorable mention that I did forget. Austin Theory, who is the new Evolve champion actually, taking the belt from Fabian Eichner. Fair play to Austin Theory. Very pleased for him. He seems to be one who WWE have their eye on, and we could well see him crop up in NXT / Evolve no, he's already in Evolve. NXT / maybe even the main roster after that, who knows, in a major way. Number 8, one of the true highlights of 2018, and I was checking some stats out earlier on before the recording of this video. I think he's been Wrestler of the Week 3 times. It's none other than Kota Ibushi. Ibushi was part of a 5-star match this week, so why isn't he higher on the list? It's because it was a bloody tag team match yet again. He teamed up with Kenny Omega to take on the slightly odd team of Will Osprey, a Chaos member, and Hiroshi Tanahashi, a historic enemy of Chaos, to be honest, but they found themselves on the same page recently after Jay White's tried to sort of take over, and Okada is sort of siding with Tanahashi now, his historic rival, and because Okada and Osprey are both sort of best pals and members of Chaos, it does sort of make sense for Osprey to team with Tanahashi in this match. Ibushi was awesome as per usual. I think I saw in this week's Observer, that Meltzer reported that maybe, in his opinion, Ibushi could be the most naturally talented wrestler on the planet. And I'd find it hard to disagree, to be honest. He just has such a flair, such a crispness about him. Everything he does looks pretty perfect. And he looks about 20, and he's actually like 37 or something. It's quite outrageous behaviour from Mr. Ibushi. This match popped off online for one particular spot, which I'll get to in just a second, but apart from that, on the whole, it was a thrilling tag team match. New Japan have really put a lot of effort into making tag team matches a big deal again in 2018. We saw the Young Bucks obviously versus the Golden Lovers, and the Golden Lovers have really become one of the best tag teams in the world, even if they are made up of 2 primarily singles wrestlers in the form of Ibushi and Omega. They picked up the victory in this tag team match as well, defeating Osprey and Tanahashi and taking all the momentum into Wrestle Kingdom. Will they pick up wins at Wrestle Kingdom against their respective opponents? I guess we'll find out on January 4th. Number 7, a man who has also been Wrestler of the Week 3 times this year, and the winner of Wrestlers of the Week, it's William Osprey. Before I talk about this match, actually, I just want to point out that I think the other people who've been Wrestler of the Week 3 times are Zack Sabre Jr. and Kenny Omega. I think nobody else apart from Osprey, Omega, Zack Sabre Jr. and Ibushi have been Wrestler of the Week 3 times this year. Really good stuff, and it just speaks to the sort of consistency of those guys. But you don't necessarily need to be Wrestler of the Week a lot of times to rack up the points on this league table, as proven by Volta, one of the very top people in this series, who I think was only Wrestler of the Week 1 time. It's almost as if one person's opinion doesn't really reflect on everyone's opinion. Who knows? Who knows if that's true or not? Osprey was the star of this match. I'm not just saying that because I'm a big fan of Osprey. He was the star of this match, and I'm going to talk about that really gifable moment where he took to the skies, as he often does. He loves that. He loves flying about, doesn't he, bloody Will? He did a big springboard head scissors. Sorry, he took a big springboard head scissors from Ibushi, but did a front flip, landed on his feet, and they did such an anime standoff back to back. Osprey just posing because he's like, check out what I've just done. And then Ibushi's behind him going, he did not just do that. It was like cheesy, obviously, but wrestling is cheesy, and I thought it was very cool. Osprey did go on to lose the match and actually ate the pinfall as well, which, I don't know what this means. Does this mean that it's a bit of a bait and switch and he's actually going to win at Wrestle Kingdom? I'm not certain, but the important thing here is that Osprey and Ibushi are reportedly opening the main portion of the Wrestle Kingdom show. Talk about a hot opener. That could be a match of the year right off the bat. Who knows what's going to happen, but I, for one, absolutely cannot wait. Number 6, we've mentioned his former tag team partner on this list already, Cassius Ohno, and this man is Alistair Black, one of the main eventers this week on NXT. Alistair Black had a wonderful cage match in which he wasn't really the focal point of the story, which we'll get to in just a second, but still, he was on form. When Alistair Black's on form, you can really tell. He's one of those wrestlers that is just able to kick things up into a higher gear when matched with the right opponent. He was hitting crisp moves left, right and centre. He was using the cage really well. He was also selling really well. We don't often think of Alistair Black as a tremendous seller because he's so often on offense and dominating with his strikes and that sort of thing, but he was getting lawn darted into the side of the cage and stuff, and he was bumping and crumpling and folding like a madman. It was awesome to see. He even did the really cool thing at one point where he lifted up the guy slowly with his feet. But I don't think it worked this time. I think it backfired right in his face. But his opponent, Gargano, did at one point mimic what Black had said to him at their previous match and went, "I absolve you of your sins." And then Gargano went to kick him, and Black just got there first with the black mask, took his face off pretty much, and it was awesome. Even though he lost, and we'll talk about the circumstances in which he lost soon, it was still an awesome performance from the Dutchman, a real standout of NXT in 2018, amongst many standouts on NXT in 2018. Number 5, his opponent, Jonathan Q. Gargano, another massive standout, and I think probably my wrestler of the year for NXT. He has been just such a versatile performer this year, starting off obviously at NXT Philadelphia, the ultimate babyface against Andrade Cien Almas, then entering that intense feud with Tommaso Ciampa, then gradually turning heel until now fully embracing the dark side, and now things have gone one step further. We'll talk about why right now. This was a surprise, to be honest. So Ciampa came out, and just as it looked like Alistair Black was going to escape out of the door, he had it slammed in his face by Ciampa, and Gargano was on the outside pretty much. He was dangling from the cage, and he could have just dropped down and won, but he decided, no, I'm going to solidify this moment in very heelish fashion. Got back in the ring, stood opposite, Ciampa in diagonal corners, and they did the old DIY double team finisher, super kick knee combo, and it was brilliant. But what's going to happen next? That's the best thing about this storyline, is that we don't know what's going to happen next, but we can't wait to find out why, or I certainly can't wait. DIY are back together, but in heelish fashion. Are they going to be a proper alliance? Are they going to do tag team matches again? Are they going to be uneasy allies? Or was this just a one-off thing? Is it just going to be another reason for Ciampa to betray Gargano and break his heart at a later date? Is it going to be a plan of Gargano's to sucker Ciampa in to be his friend again now that he's turned to the dark side and seen, the light in Ciampa's ways, and then eventually Gargano's going to go, no, I was just kidding, I was a babyface all along, hooray! I can't tell which way this is going to go, but whatever happens, I trust that NXT will make it as exciting and as dramatic as possible. And if anyone can do it, if anyone can pull it off and execute it well, it's Mr. Wrestling, Johnny Gargano. Number 4, a tag team wrestler primarily, Ortiz from LAX. He is really cool. Ortiz is the bigger member of LAX, and he's never been on Wrestlers of the Week before, so this is a big moment for him. I'm sure he cares. Yeah, he's the bigger guy. He often receives the hot tag and then comes in and clears house and stuff. And he's been a babyface for the majority of this year. Really cool to see LAX as babyfaces, especially in matches such as the one at, I think it was Bound for Glory, where there was no canvas, it was just the boards and stuff. They had a really good match at Slammiversary as well against the OGs. LAX have been really good, and the reason that Ortiz gets on the list this week is because they had 2 excellent matches at the 2 Progress shows which dropped this week. There was the show where they defeated CCK to become #1 contenders to the Progress Tag Team Championships, and then they eventually lost that title shot to Aussie Open. I think both of those shows took place in the north of England. Come on, the north. So yeah, Ortiz is often not criticised, but it's often pointed out that Santana does a lot of the legwork while Ortiz stands on the apron. But he is one of the best hot tags in wrestling today. When Santana's crawling towards him and selling really well, as he does, Ortiz is always there, ready to come in with a whole boatload of energy and stuff. And when the roles are reversed and Ortiz is the one getting beaten down or doing the majority of the legwork, he does that really well too. A phenomenal wrestler. Not certain how well he'd do on his own, but I wouldn't be against seeing him given a chance as a single star. The only reason that I wouldn't like it is because it would break up LAX, and they're one of the best tag teams in the world right now. Number 3, now I mentioned in the honorable mentions Kylie Ray, who was the main eventer of the recent AAW Unstoppable show I think it's in Chicago. AAW is based in Chicago, and I think that show is in Chicago. But anyway, she was in the main event, but earlier on in the night, there was an hour-long time limit draw, and one half of that match was this man, ACH. Now, ACH should be familiar to a lot of you as one of the best indies wrestlers in North America for the past, few years now. He's also gone to New Japan and wrestled there as part of the tag team tournament and that sort of thing. And he's just really versatile, really consistent as well. He's always consistently excellent. But I've never seen quite a spotlight on ACH as much as in this match. He wrestled for an hour opposite Trevor Lee. ACH was the babyface and put in a hell of a performance and should have had the match won so close to the end, Basically what happened was he went to hit his finisher, but it was reversed by Trevor Lee, and before either of them could do anything else, the bell rang and time expired. Then, in a brilliant babyface move, ACH got on the microphone and said, "Let's do 5 more minutes, man. I'm still good to go." And the crowd were like, yes, this is amazing. Unfortunately, he didn't get the chance to because he was then beaten down by another heel. I think it was Eddie Kingston, who I love. I think Eddie Kingston's brilliant, so I wouldn't be against an ACH versus Eddie Kingston match in the near future. But this bout, an hour-long time limit draw. I'm such a wrestling nerd. You can't wrestle an hour-long time limit draw and expect me not to give it some points. Come on. I'm such a smart. feel so ashamed of myself. I take wrestling far too seriously sometimes. Number 2, his opponent, Trevor Lee of PWG and Impact fame. But the reason for his high placement on this week's list is because of that hour-long time limit draw against ACH at AAW Unstoppable. Whenever there's an epic match like this, I never know who to give the majority of the points to, simply because it's so hard to decide who's been more impressive in a match that has put both guys over as being so damn good. I think the thing that swung it in Trevor Lee's favour for me was the fact that he was such a good heel. He's always a good heel, but not just his usual heel self. He actually subverted his own character a little bit. I'll explain why. He got on the microphone before the match, and everyone's used to Trevor Lee cutting promos before matches to get heat so that we all want to see him beaten. Got on the microphone, didn't say a word, did not say a word, just waited for the match to begin. That's a dick move in itself, but it also showed how seriously he was taking this match and just how much he wanted to get the win. Then about halfway through the match, when he couldn't put ACH away, he got on the microphone and called him a bitch and told him to give up and let him win. Again, brilliant heel stuff. So simple, so old school, but at the same time, so intense and so cool to see. And I really like the idea that he didn't say anything before the match, but when he was frustrated later on and his focus was broken, that's when he snapped and started verbally abusing his opponent. Really good stuff. ACH, for his part, showed great babyface fire, snatching the mic and saying, "You're the bitch," or something like that. It wasn't a great comeback, but it was intense. And then battering him is what I said there. I think I said batting him by accident. There wasn't a bat involved. So Trevor Lee gets a boatload of points, and I think as well it's his first time on Wrestlers of the Week too. This week has seen a lot of people who deserve to be on this list already finally break onto the list, and I feel a mixture of glad and guilty about it. I feel like, I should have included them earlier, but I'm relieved that just at the end of the year, on the penultimate episode, so many talented wrestlers are finally getting on the list. And finally, number 1 on my Wrestler of the Week, and it's a first-time Wrestler of the Week. He's been on the list once before, picking up like 4 points, I think, but now he's got the full 10. It's the other member of LAX, it's Santana. As I said in the Ortiz entry, or as I hinted at, Ortiz often lets Santana do a lot of the legwork, and that's why the team is so good. You know, you need one guy to take all the bumps and do all the groundwork, lay the foundations of the match before Ortiz comes in and clears house. But the beauty of LAX's matches this week is that it wasn't just a simple formula like that. They started with that simple formula and then built on it and built on it. And even Ortiz, who I sort of falsely suggested stands on the apron a lot, would get involved and they'd do big double team moves, they'd switch in and out, fast paced, that sort of thing. These matches were paced excellently. As I said, Santana took part in 2 tag matches, one against CCK when they won, leveling the series between CCK and LAX at 1 apiece, and then they lost to Aussie Open as well. Did I give Aussie Open an honourable mention in the honourable mentions section? I should have done. Mark Davis and Carl Fletcher, well done lads. You're the honourable mentions, good stuff. Honestly, the sky's the limit for Santana. Again, like Ortiz, I'd love to see him given a chance as a single star, but again, that would make me sad because it would involve the breakup of an excellent tag team in the form of LAX. I never know what to suggest really, because I think if I was a wrestling fan in sort of like the late 80s, early 90s, yeah, I wouldn't have wanted the Rockers to break up because they're exactly the sort of tag team that I would have liked back then. But then Shawn Michaels obviously became one of the greatest of all time. Sadly, it didn't pan out for Jannetty, but if there was a way of guaranteeing that when a tag team broke up and both guys went on to become stars, I'd want that for LAX because they both deserve to. I just prefer Santana's work just a little bit more, just a tad, or I did this week anyway, and that is why he, for the first time in the series, is my Wrestler of the Week. Congratulations, Santana. Obviously, you're going to have a good Christmas, mate. Wrestler of the Week, 10 big points. Get the beers in for the lads. So with all that said, let's take a look at the second last league table of the year. Will Osprey extend his lead a little bit? We know he's won already, that doesn't really matter. A little bit further down, we see that Johnny Gargano has jumped ahead of Matthew Riddle, or he's extended his lead rather over Matt Riddle. He was 1 point ahead of him, I think. Also, Alistair Black has improved a little bit as well, jumping ahead of guys like Cody Rhodes and Goto up into joint 15th position alongside Ricochet. Wonderful stuff. I'd love to see a match between them actually. Has that happened before in NXT? I can't think of that off the top of my head. Maybe it has. Not much else has changed as we reach the bottom of the list, but what an excellent year it's been so far. 1 week left as well. Who can grab some points at the very last opportunity? So that's it this week for my Wrestlers of the Week. 1 episode left, but never fear because we will be back in 2019 for a second season. Also, as many people have been asking, we will at some point on the website cultaholic.com be publishing the league table in full. Every single wrestler who's ever gained a point will be there for your viewing pleasure if you like stats and facts and nerdy things like that. Don't know why I'm calling you a nerd, I like that sort of thing as well. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to, at Jack the Jobber. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic and check out our Patreon as well, patreon.com/Cultaholic. Have a very Merry Christmas and I will see you next time for the final episode of 2018. And don't forget, of course, to join us.